What's up, everybody? On today's show, more updates from around SEC fall camps. Josh Heupel said, what about Joe Milton? Brian Kelly with an update on an absent player, and Nick Saban talks quarterbacks. Also, Vanderbilt doing their part to help out their week 0 opponent, Hawaii, and a bunch of media personalities at CBS and ESPN sound off on their predictions for the SEC in 2023. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. This episode is presented to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. FanDuel.com/LockedOn is where you need to go. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, got plenty to jump into. Let's dive right into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start over at Tennessee. As we know, Joe Milton has one of the strongest arms out there. The question is, can he put some touch on it? Is he going to look accurate, good throughout this season as the Tennessee starter? Well, Josh Heupel talking with the media this week, he said that Joe Milton has been really accurate with the football, and he's not even sure if he's thrown an interception at all during training camp. That's from our buddy Eric Kane over at Locked On Vols reporting that. Milton, of course, backed up Hendon Hooker last year, got his chance to play the last couple games after Hendon Hooker went down with the ACL injury. And look, Joe Milton looked really good in those games. Led Tennessee in an Orange Bowl victory over Clemson. And again, no question that his arm strength is ridiculous. He can throw the ball farther than any quarterback in the SEC. But look, Josh Heupel, you hyping your man up, said he hasn't thrown a pick yet. That's high praise. And if that's true, well, the whole SEC could be in trouble if Joe Milton is ready to go on a tear. I told you guys, talking with some media members at the Manning Passing Academy, they said that is the guy that's the X factor. If Joe Milton can take his game to another level, Tennessee's going to win a lot of games this year, and that Georgia game looms large. But we'll see. Tennessee will open the season against Virginia September 2nd. We'll see what Joe Milton looks like. But Josh Heupel given an update this week on some injured players, particularly some younger injured players, and freshman defensive lineman Tyree Weathersby going to miss the entire season with an unspecified injury. Also, freshman running back Deshaun Bishop is also injured, but Josh Heupel did not rule him out to return to the field in a few months. Tyree Weathersby was a 4-star D lineman coming out of high school, and we will see what happens with Deshaun Bishop down the way and that running back depth there at Tennessee. All right, other camp updates. How about at LSU? Brian Kelly talking with the media on Wednesday and having to address rumors regarding cornerback Denver Harris. The sophomore DB has missed all 3 practices this week at LSU. He was not part of the team photo earlier this week. And Kelly disclosed Denver Harris, quote, dealing with personal matters, but did expect optimism that he could be back as soon as this weekend if he does everything he needs to do, is what Brian Kelly said. Of course, Denver Harris was part of that epic recruiting class signed over at Texas A&M a couple years ago, and last year got in as a freshman, but was dismissed from the team with several other players for disciplinary reasons. You know about it. You can go Google it. But LSU kind of looking for some depth at DB. They brought in Denver Harris hoping he could help, but you go by practice reports, he was running with the 3rd-team defense last week. So I don't know how much he will help this team, even if he gets his stuff figured out. But certainly a big-time name, a former 5-star recruit that, of course, could help LSU out. Also at LSU, their big D lineman Mason Smith, who tore his ACL in the game against Florida State last year in the opener, only played a handful of plays all last year. 6'6", 315 pounds. He is back this year, and Brian Kelly saying that they're going to be really careful with him. He said he's been out for a year. Everything hurts him a little bit more after coming back. We got to be careful. He had an ankle sprain in camp. Nothing we're too concerned about, but we're going to be careful with him. So no doubt Mason Smith can be a big part of what LSU wants to do this season, but they got to have him out there healthy and on the field. One other LSU note, backup quarterback Garrett Nussmeier spoke with the media this week and was asked, why'd he come back with Jaden Daniels coming back? Why wouldn't he hit the transfer portal and go somewhere else and start? He said, look, coming back, I don't think it was a hard decision for me. This is where I want to be. My roots are in Louisiana. This is my home. It means something to me to represent LSU and represent this state. I have a lot of love for my teammates, my coaches, and I want to finish what we started. Nussmeier, of course, appeared in a couple games for LSU last year, including coming in for Jaden Daniels in the Citrus Bowl and put up some big numbers. Looked really good in that second half of the SEC championship game against Georgia's defense. So we'll see what Nuss's role is this year. In a perfect world, Jaden Daniels is a starter all year, puts up great numbers, leads LSU to a great record. But they know they got a good one behind him if any injuries were to happen. Garrett Nussmeier ready to rise to the occasion. All right, over at Georgia, their receiving core, one of the strengths of the team heading into this season. And one of the interesting ones, Mizzou transfer Dominic Lovett coming in as one of the top receivers in the SEC last year at Missouri, where he had 56 catches for 846 yards and could be a big-time weapon for new quarterback Carson Beck with Brock Bowers, Arian Smith, Lad McConkey, and been turning some heads over there at Georgia. The Bulldogs very high on what he's going to bring, along with Rara Thomas, the Mississippi State transfer. And a lot of folks think that this is the time to shine for Dominic Lovett and company. So going to be interested to see how they get, spread the ball around and get everybody enough catches and all that. But, it's got to start with Brock Bowers. That's got to be the centerpiece of that offense. The guy's too good and could very well have a 1,000-yard season coming for Brock Bowers. Will anybody else get close? We will see. It's been a long time since Georgia had a 1,000-yard receiver. All right, over at Alabama, Nick Saban talking with the media this week and talking about his quarterbacks, waiting for that next person to step up. He said, what I tell the quarterbacks is it's not up to us. It's not up to the coaches. You're looking over your shoulder to see if the coach is going to do this or that. How about you forcing me to play you? Force us to play you. When you get your reps and you get a chance to play, you play so good, we don't have any choice but to play you. It's an interesting way for Nick Saban to look at it. But, of course, Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Buckner, all still battling it out. Nick Saban saying this week all three have seen first-team reps during Alabama's work and their scrimmage over the weekend. He didn't get into much other detail about each quarterback and what they've done, but some reports saying Jalen Milroe might have the upper hand right now. A couple weeks ago, it was Ty Simpson. Others say Tyler Buckner didn't transfer in there not to play. So this thing's still very much up in the air. We're just a couple weeks away. Alabama's going to kick off their season Saturday, September 2nd against Middle Tennessee State. I got a feeling at least two of the guys are going to play in that one, if not all three. The question is, do you really go in with that approach, not knowing when you got the Texas Longhorns coming in week 2? Fascinating to see how this shakes out for Alabama. Meanwhile, Nick Saban talked about leadership with several of his key players this week. He said everybody talks about leadership, but I think it's important that how much guys on the team need to be. If you have a bunch of guys that are mature and things are going the right way, they're all setting a good example, they're all buying in, they're all doing the right things, that's leadership. So they don't really necessarily need to have someone impact them to do the right thing. The more guys we have that fit in that category of doing the right thing, the more important the leaders on this team become. Of course, they've got leaders all over. On the offensive line, you got J.C. Latham. On defensive side, Dallas Turner, Kool-Aid McKinstry. They've got a lot of great reps in that category. So we'll see if those leaders can step up for Alabama this year and finish with a better record than they had last year. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll continue to go around the conference, including great efforts of what Vanderbilt is doing to help out Hawaii in week 0. We'll talk about that in just a second, right here at Locked On SEC. But first, this episode is presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Look, guys, football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets back every time they win in the regular season. You just go to FanDuel, you pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you're going to get bonus bets back for every victory they have. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and much more. Go visit them right now. FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is going to get you that, or get you start earning those bonus bets with America's #1 sports book. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go take some time today. Go visit FanDuel and include those money lines, props, and everything else around your team. Very simple. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get started today. Football season's upon us. Roll along here, Locked On SEC, and thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. We still got plenty we got to dive back into here as we got plenty more to go around the conference with some fall camp updates. But reminder to our everydayers, keep checking us out. Tomorrow on the show, we'll have more fall camp updates. We're getting closer, guys. We're almost to kickoff for week 0 for Vanderbilt and Hawaii, and that is where we're going to start today. Vanderbilt's season opening game against Hawaii, taking on a much deeper meaning than just a football game. They had that tragedy just last week out in Hawaii with all the wildfires out there in Maui, and Vanderbilt is stepping up. They have decided to donate a portion of their ticket sales for their week 0 opener against Hawaii to the Maui Strong Fund that is organized through the Hawaii Community Foundation. They're going to provide financial resources that can be deployed quickly with a focus on rapid response and recovery for all those devastating wildfires out in Miami. So Vanderbilt, next week, guys, they will host Hawaii, August 26th, 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. We televised on the SEC Network. Of course, Vanderbilt beat Hawaii last year 63-10 in their season opener in Honolulu. That made a lot of us turn our heads because Vanderbilt hasn't won many games at all in the last couple of years, but last year, they really started to become a more competitive bunch. Of course, the upset wins over Kentucky and Florida were the marquee storylines of the season. But looking at ESPN's FPI, they think Vanderbilt's going to start 1-0. Vanderbilt, according to ESPN's Football Power Index, has an 81% chance to win the game against Hawaii. So no pressure, Clark Lee, but you better start off 1-0 here very soon. All right, other fall camp updates. Let's go over to South Carolina. Spencer Rattler coming into his second year in Columbia, and he's ready to take his game to another level. Of course, we saw him on the backstretch of last season with the huge wins over Tennessee and Clemson. Nearly beat Notre Dame in their bowl game. But Spencer Rattler, talking with the media this week, said the offense bringing way more explosive plays in practice at this point than they were at last year. He said, feeling great about it. We go fast at times, and it's a lot of fun. He said, quote, this offense suits me a lot better. Says he feels like he's just playing his game. Of course, they got rid of Marcus Satterfield as the offense coordinator this offseason, brought in Dole Loggins from Arkansas, and Spencer Rattler loves it. Says he feels great about this offense. Feels like this suits him a lot better than last year's. So we're going to see week 1 coming up here very soon. September 2nd, they will play North Carolina in Charlotte. Of course, Drake May, the headliner over at UNC. So going to be a fun battle between two of the better quarterbacks in all of college football. Over at Florida, they continue their fall camp. And, of course, Billy Napier announced already that Graham Mertz is going to be their starting quarterback. And Graham Mertz talking with the media saying, look, it's an honor and a blessing. I'm going to treat it as such, being the Florida Gator starter. You have to walk out there with that pride every day. He said he believes he has the capability to lead this Florida offense, which ranked 57th last year in points per game. He said, I'm very excited about what this offense can be. Mertz, not known to be a very mobile quarterback, but he says he thinks he can overcome those issues. Says he's been working with the strength staff, feels he's improved his speed, can be more mobile if the pocket breaks down. He was sacked 23 times last season at Wisconsin. But Mertz said he takes great pride in being the Florida starter. Of course, they've had a great lineage of quarterbacks going back to Danny Werfel, Tim Tebow, Steve Spurrier. Anthony Richardson had his moments last year, but we'll see if Graham Mertz can be a more consistent quarterback. We'll find out in, just 2 weeks from tonight. Florida Gators will open the season at Utah August 31st. And keep an eye on that one. Sounding more and more like Cam Rising may not play in that game for Utah, so you might want to start laying some money on the Florida Gators in that one. One other note on Florida, former O-lineman Trent Brown, now in the NFL, was talking about his days in Florida. He said, look, I shouldn't have been playing guard at Florida. He said it was some BS. I thought I was doing what's best for the team, but I messed myself over. He didn't say mess, but cleaned it up for you. Of course, the Gators struggled that season. It's final year of the Will Muschamp era, and they had a lot go wrong while Trent Brown was there at Florida. But luckily for him, he has taken his game to the NFL and doesn't have to worry about Will Muschamp anymore. All right, in other SEC camp news, over at Auburn, their 2021 signing class that they brought in just a couple of years ago, now down to one player. Auburn this week learned that offensive tackle Garner Lango, who was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school, has left the program. His bio page on Auburn's website, no longer there. 3 seasons at Auburn. He did not play in a game, but during fall camp, he was seeing some time at left tackle on the second-team offense. In his absence, Tulsa transfer Jaden Muskrat reportedly filled in at left tackle with the second unit. And that means Jarquez Hunter, the only remaining player from Auburn's 2021 recruiting class. So crazy how quickly that thing has turned over. Over at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin talking with ESPN's Marty and McGee about all the changes across college football. And he said, look, when it comes to NIL, it's not like I'm the president giving the State of the Union about the NIL or portal problems. I do it because you guys tell me afterwards when I do those interviews how appreciative you are. I see fans or parents of recruits tell me, wow, thank you. We really didn't know that's what's really happening because no other coach tells us the truth like this. He said, look, I think kind of accepting that you're not going to have phenomenal culture doesn't mean I don't work on it, but I have to realize it is what it is. He said, we don't have many kids that are dying to come here to Ole Miss. They didn't grow up wanting to go to Ole Miss, so we have to go to the transfer portal and try to get kids to come in here and try to turn things around. He said we've now moved towards this NFL model where it is really just a business, and the joy is not the same as it once was. So Lane Kiffin kind of voicing some of his opinions there. Meanwhile, over at Kentucky, they're picking up a late addition here in the offseason. Wake Forest linebacker Jaquez Keys coming on as a walk-on running back for the 2023 season. Keys entered the portal late last month. He was part of Wake Forest's recruiting class last year. He was originally listed as a running back, but signed with the Demon Deacons as a linebacker. And as a 3-star prospect, was the number 53 running back in the class of 2023. So, he's going to come on over to join Kentucky's running back room with Ray Davis, Juton McClain, Ramon Jefferson. Nice room there. Kentucky will open the season against Ball State on September 2nd. A few other SEC football-related notes. Reese Davis talking about his preseason rankings for college football and dissecting it. A little Q&A he did on Twitter. He revealed that he's got Alabama as the number 5 team in the country. And his reason, he said, was unproven quarterback play. But Reese Davis went to Alabama, so a little bit behind the scenes there. He said, look, whoever wins the quarterback battle is going to have their work cut out for him. But he did note that Georgia also unproven at the quarterback spot. And he revealed he does not have Georgia number 1, Reese Davis. He said, look, quarterback, and it's not that they don't have talented guys. Carson Beck is likely the starter, but he said, I was told by someone close to the Georgia program just a couple days ago that Brock Vandergriff has been really terrific in fall camp. So they got a lot of talented options. They are just unproven. Reese Davis has the reigning Big Ten champs, Michigan, as his number 1 preseason team. But he thinks if Georgia can withstand Ole Miss and Tennessee in consecutive weeks prior to their season finale, the path back to the college football playoff is attainable. So while I don't have Georgia ranked number 1 to start the preseason poll, I have Michigan on top. It's not unreasonable to think that Georgia isn't just going to reload. The schedule suggests that they really only have 2 games that they could even find a way to give away over the course of the regular season. So Reese Davis sharing his opinions there on his preseason rankings. And again, take it for what it is. If you don't like Reese Davis or his rankings, you don't have to. So thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll hear what some of the folks over at CBS had to say with their predictions coming into this season. More Locked On SEC right after this. Roll along here, Locked On SEC, and we just gave you Reese Davis's thoughts on some of the SEC teams ranked high going into this season. Let's see what some of the CBS folks had to say as we dive back into it. But first, CBS announcing their broadcast teams for the upcoming season. The network will have, of course, their trio of veterans as their lead crew. It is, of course, going to be Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson once again on the call with Jenny Dell down on the field. They will call the CBS Game of the Week every Saturday in that normal 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern slot. And, of course, this will be the last year of the SEC on CBS. The contract will change over next year where they will feature Big Ten teams in that marquee time slot. Now, they are picking up some Big Ten games already this year. This year's SEC slate will also include multiple doubleheaders like we normally get. But for the first 2 weeks of this season, CBS will have a Big Ten contest in that traditional 3:30 Eastern time slot. For week 1, they will have Ohio State, Indiana. And week 2, they will have UNLV, Michigan. Good Lord. Does anybody want to watch those games? Week 3, the SEC will have a game each week on CBS starting each consecutive week, week 3 and later. So, of course, CBS, like we said, starting that new contract with the Big Ten. And, well, we won't be watching those in the SEC because Big Ten football's boring. A few other CBS sports notes. Houston Nutt is calling it an end to his broadcast career with CBS Sports. He joined them in 2012 as a college football studio analyst. Of course, most known for his head coaching stints at Arkansas and Ole Miss. Had a really successful coaching career, and he announced after 11 incredible years, I've decided to say goodbye to my CBS Sports team to spend more time being a grandpa and spending time with my family. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to work along with some great people. I will miss you all, Houston Nutt. Of course, he was 3-time SEC Coach of the Year in 01, 06, and 08. And while at Ole Miss, he led the Rebels to back-to-back Cotton Bowl wins in 09 and 2010. The rest of the crew that's coming back on CBS Sports, they did their season previews, kind of making their picks around all the conferences, and they made their picks for the SEC title game. Brian Jones and A.J. Ross, they are siding with LSU, while Danny Cannell and Aaron Taylor are taking the back-to-back national champion Georgia. Nobody taking Alabama? Interesting. But if Georgia and LSU meet in the conference title game, it'll be, of course, a rematch of last year's SEC title game. LSU is 3-2 all-time against Georgia in the SEC title game. Now, CBS Sports analyst Aaron Taylor was talking about the LSU Tigers and how do they get there and what's their path. He said that if Jaden Daniels can build off of some of that positive momentum last year, that he is just the type of piece that Brian Kelly needs to bring his first SEC title back to Baton Rouge. He said if Jaden can take that next step and continue to protect the football, he's a walking highlight machine and just the type of piece that Brian Kelly needs to take that next step. Meanwhile, Danny Cannell, talking on Alabama, he said they're missing that key element of the offense, and that's the quarterback and the receivers. Danny Cannell said the best friend of a quarterback are his receivers who can make yards after the catch, and that's what Alabama has been missing. He's calling out Alabama's receivers, saying they need to make things easier on whoever wins that starting job in Tuscaloosa. Cannell said, in this system, where I do think they're going to run the football more, if they get those short crossing routes, get the ball in their hands, That makes that quarterback's job so much easier. And, of course, you got Jermaine Burton, Ja'Cory Brooks, Kobe Prentice, so many different weapons there. And they picked up Malik Benson, transfer from Hutchinson Community College. So we'll see who will be that alpha. It's been a while since Alabama's had an alpha at wide receiver. The Devontae Smiths, the Amari Coopers, all these different guys they've had throughout the years. Jerry Jeudy, who's going to be that guy? We will see here this season. Now, a few other notes. Danny Cannell said he doesn't think there will be a massive drop-off for Georgia in transitioning from Stetson Bennett to Carson Beck. He said the supporting cast is going to help Beck in his maturation process. He said there will be 4- and 5-star NFL talent all over the field. It's Beck's job just to make sure he doesn't make the big mistakes. You can rely on that defense as well. The first real test and only test will be in Knoxville against Tennessee. They'll be able to really ease him in as the quarterback of Georgia by that time. That's the CBS Sports Guys' thoughts on the SEC. Meanwhile, Paul Feinbaum, he made his weekly appearance over on Jocks FM, and he talked about managing expectations for Hugh Freeze and Auburn this season. Paul Feinbaum saying, look, I think 8 wins is probably SEC Coach of the Year land for Hugh Freeze. 7 would be considered a good season. I just think there's a talent deficit on the Plains right now. He said, I think a lot of times what you don't know in the SEC is the 50-50 games. We obsess over that because you have so many of those, but you saw last year, nobody could have seen Vandy beating Kentucky and Florida in consecutive weeks. That was impossible to predict. Auburn's regular season win total in a lot of sports books is right around 6.5 wins. Feinbaum thinks, they should go over that. 7 wins would be a nice year for Auburn. A few other notes. The watch list for the Manning Award came out. 4 quarterbacks from the SEC making the cut. Jaden Daniels from LSU, Spencer Rattler from South Carolina, KJ Jefferson at Arkansas, and Will Rogers from Mississippi State. Of course, the award is in honor of the Manning family accomplishments with Peyton, Archie, and Eli. So some good names there making the list. The Pac-12 had 6 quarterbacks make the watch list, while the ACC and Big 12 have 4, just like the SEC. And one last note, The Athletic put out their list of freak athletes in college football. It's Bruce Feldman's annual freak list. And coming from the SEC, he has got at the number 1 spot, true freshman Nicholas Harbor, or Nick Harbor, as they call him, over there at South Carolina. 6'5", 230 pounds. He's a freak, and he will should have an immediate role in that South Carolina offense. So going to be fun to see how Shane Beamer and company utilize him this season. And there you have it. That's the latest news going on all around the conference, and we got you caught up on everything. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Come back and check us out tomorrow as we get you set for the weekend. And then next week, it's game week. We got Hawaii and Vanderbilt happening next week. And then the week after that, we got everybody else. So college football is upon us. You guys come back and subscribe. Make sure you are checking us out on YouTube or, of course, the podcast version, which you can find on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're there for you. Just search Locked On SEC. I'm Chris Gordy. You guys have a great day, everybody. Again, we'll talk to you tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.